Hey, welcome to Cast Party Community Theater Unmasked. This is the place where we chat about specific topics with a panel of community theater people who have had experience with local groups and how they operate. So this is all about sharing, both on this YouTube show and in the comments and the conversations that'll follow. The main goal is to create a spark of an idea that maybe can be applied for you to better serve your audiences and your groups. So we know each group's different. Not everybody goes to the same place. They don't have the same finances, and they all have their own challenges. The hope is that by doing it by topic, each month's topic will apply at least to encourage further discussion within each of your groups. My name is Dan Prueher, and I'll host each month with a changing panel in a new topic. I've been involved at all levels of community theater for a long time, and I saw a need for folks like us to connect, to learn, and collaborate. So cast parties, just the new way to do that. Today's topic is selecting shows and directors. Now I would like each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Mark?
I'm Mark Wegner. I'm with the Oregon Straw Hat Players. Oregon's a village of about 11,000, and there are 9 members on the board, and I've been on the board for about 3 years now.
Great. Dan?
I'm Dan Presser, and I am in Prairie with the Prairie Civic Theater, and I've been on the board here for, in my 5th year, 2 different stints, started around 2015. And Prairie is closing in on about 40,000 people now, so we've grown from even the 6 years ago when I was first on the board.
Excellent. And Tony?
My name is Tony Ketterer. I am president of the board of the Stoughton Village Players. Stoughton is a community about 15 miles southeast of Madison. We have about 13,000 people. Our group has been around for about 50 years, and we have a lovely home here in downtown Stoughton of a 100-year-old Badger Theater.
Excellent.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to have you gentlemen here. This is great from 3 different experiences, which we'll find out about. So we're going to start our conversation, but first, just a little housekeeping. Just wanted to remind everyone, this is not live. So any comments that you give won't be seen until the episode is posted on YouTube. So just keep checking back. Obviously, please share this link with anybody who you think might benefit. It's all about growing the audience, right? And also let me know right away if you want to be a future panelist. We're going to do this every month, so I need people to fill those slots, and I want to have a variety each month of different kinds of groups. So let me know. Share ideas that you might have for future topics. As you can see, this is topic based, not group based, and anything that you think will improve this YouTube show. I'm interested in any improvements you have. I've been told that this is technically not a podcast, although I've heard things called video podcasts. So right now I'm calling it a YouTube show. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Also, I'm sorry I have to say this, but I will. Please do not use this forum to air personal grievances about individuals or groups. Let's keep names out of it. Let's be civil, collaborative, and yet real. So I think you know what we're going for here. So anyway, I guess we're ready to start. So Dan, let's start with you. Topic: selecting shows and directors. What has been your experience?
So since I've been part of the group, and we've been around for 50 years too, it's changed many times over the years. But since I've been part of the group, we've done it 2 different ways. And what we're doing right now is by committee. So we select a committee as a board from members of the board and also members at large of the group. Typically, it'll be 3 to 5 people on that committee. And then that committee goes away and they come up with ideas for shows based on, what's popular out there right now, what we think people might want to see, what's available. And then they'll come back to the board with their ideas, and then the board will take 3 to 5 shows, depending on what we're planning on doing that year, and then we will vote on those. And there's always a long discussion on every show, obviously, even after the committee sessions. But even in the board, we're still discussing it, and I wouldn't say arguing, but people have ideas, and Do we have directors? Do we have people who want to be involved in the show? So those are all those things that everybody thinks about who's on this panel and who is involved in community theater. So that's what we do right now. And we kind of went to that because we were having some trouble finding directors. And it's always a challenge for us. I don't know how it is for everybody else, but we have a fair amount of internal directors, but we're always trying to bring new people into the organization. So that's kind of how we do it right now. I could get more into detail, but I'm sure other folks want to talk to here.
Mark, what's your experience?
Yeah, I think in the time that I've been with the group, ours is a little less formal than that. We don't really have a committee to sort of select the shows. Sometimes we've basically had circumstances kind of dictate to us a little bit about the types of shows we're going to do. In 2017, well, we usually perform at the Oregon Performing Arts Center at the high school, and there had been a fire there right before the summer show. So obviously you can't have a big show, and so plans had to be sort of changed at the last minute, and looking at more like review shows and things like that. And that's how we ended up doing Sondheim on Sondheim that year. So yeah, kind of adaptability to what the current circumstances are was important to us. Also, of course, the past few years we've, in my time on the board, started during the pandemic, so that sort of hit, of course, everyone. Live theater.
You're the problem.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, I started and then there it went. But as theaters took a break and we had to figure out how do we maintain our relevance, how do we stay in the community, so we did a streaming show to sort of continue that presence and keep our name out there. But the process mostly is just, as the board, we get together and look at what are the circumstances, what kinds of things are we looking at right now, what's the financial situation coming out of the pandemic, do we need a show that's going to resonate with the community, bring in good ticket sales, or is there a special event we want to look at, and we're on our 40th year, as you guys are all 50, we're 40, we're getting there. But whether that we did a special show for our 40th celebration last fall, and so there's a variety of different ways that we kind of come up with the shows. But sometimes it's a member of the group really has a show they've wanted to do, and they come forward with that idea, and we talk it over and see if it's right for the time, and if so, we move forward with that. Or if we sometimes solicit ideas from membership for shows they would like us to perform in, like to see done, and kind of work from that perspective.
How many shows a year, Mark?
It does vary. Over the last few years, it's been more like just the musical, and maybe there also is a high school musical that's done. So that, there's just a community musical, a high school musical, and then there have been attempts at doing different plays as well. So there's not really a set number, but I would say it's probably 3 or less usually.
So how are you involved in the high school musical?
It pulls from the membership where the director, the music director, the different people in the production staff, are all involved in that.
Dan, how many shows do you guys do?
Yeah, we typically do at least 3 adult shows. So we'll do a large musical and a small musical, and then either a comedy or a play in the winter, and then we have a children's show we typically do, and then we also sponsor the Penguin Project here, which is kind of operates. It's part of some Prairie Civic Theater, but they have a whole organization within the organization that picks those shows too.
Can you explain what that is for people who don't know?
Yeah, it's a wonderful program. If people have not seen it, I would highly encourage folks to come and see the Penguin Project. It's amazing. It is a program for people with special needs, kids up to 18 years old, and then they have mentors who work with them on stage. And typically they'll do a show like Music Man Jr. or something like that. And then the kids with special needs will perform all the parts with the help of the mentors if needed. And it can be up to 60 kids on stage at one time. It's really fantastic. And there's some really wonderful performers, and they rehearse that for 6 months.
Yeah,
it is a long, fun time for the kids. But and then they do one weekend of shows.
Yeah, it's amazing. Tony, talk about SVP.
So the Village Players typically puts on 3 shows every year. We have a fall show that usually goes up in November. We have what we call our winter show, which goes up in March. And then we have our Sit into My show, which is our home spun, the kind of the ongoing misadventures of Ole and Lena that we put on during the Sit into My festival in town in the middle of May every year. We are a Norwegian town, so Sit into My is our big opportunity to sort of show off the town, and it's SVP's big opportunity to sort of show us off and do our own show. In terms of choosing the shows and directors, in my time on the board and my time in the group, we have always had a play reading committee, which is a group of sort of evolving, typically a strong center cast of it, and then some revolving people that have come and gone. In the beginning, when I first started, it was really the play reading committee, along with the board, that sort of drove some of the choices that we were making with the shows, and then we would find a director. Recently, what we've tried to do is have a core cast of 6 or 7 directors that we've used quite frequently to pitch shows to us, and then we will put those in front of the play reading committee and allow them to decide whether it's something that works for us, would be good for the community, would be good for the village players. Because we're a community theater group and not something that you might find in Madison, we do have to be sensible with some of the shows we've chosen in terms of language, content, that sort of thing. At the same time, we're a theater group, so we have tried on a few occasions to sort of broaden that horizon with some of the content, and it has worked out very well. But we have a strong group of directors that we really feel comfortable with, that come to us sometimes, and sometimes we'll go to them and just say, hey, we're looking for a show 2 years out. What would you like to pitch? What's something you've wanted to do for a long time?
So you invited pitches from directors. Have you guys done that in either case?
Yeah, certainly. We, as the board, want to reach out to people we know have had success directing in the past, see if they have any ideas, see if there are shows that they're interested in doing, and see if that kind of melds with what we're looking to try to put on the stage.
And we've done, in Sun Prairie, we've done the same thing where we've had, even the committee sometimes they'll take shows that people have pitched already or sent us. They might email our president or anybody on the board about a show they want to do, and then we will actually take that into the committee and move it that way. That used to be exclusively kind of how we did it, where we just took we put out a call for directors and show ideas, and that's how we'd basically choose our season. But we just found that was getting, at least in our case, it was getting harder and harder to do. Financial considerations became larger in the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic. And like all of us, we're trying to make some money so we can put on more shows. And also, we don't have the luxury of a nice theater downtown like Stoughton does, which, by the way, is an awesome place to see a show and be in a show. But we do have beautiful schools here where we put on shows. But the challenge with that is schools do a lot in their theaters, and trying to find those times is tough. So we're hoping to maybe someday have a space that we can control. So in the meantime, we've really kind of pushed for shows that put butts in the seats, as they say.
Yeah. So Mark, how far out ahead does Oregon plan?
The last one we did was Beauty and the Beast, which just wrapped last month, and we started talking about that probably in the late fall or early winter of last year.
Less than a year. So have you talked about next summer?
We're kind of in the process of starting that. Haven't really fleshed out our plans yet, but definitely looking for people within our membership that are interested in directing or different. We also, at the end of the last show, collected a long list of shows that the people in the cast that year were interested in potentially being involved with. So we have a good list to draw from as we're trying to whittle down what we're going to do for next summer.
Yeah, well, that's a good resource, because sometimes they bring in shows that you might not have heard of or you don't know much about, but they have. They've been at other groups.
Sure.
It's a good idea. Tony, how far ahead?
Right now, we have a show, all our season essentially planned all the way out through fall of 24. That's not unusual for us to be, out a year and a half. In this case, we've known about that show. We're going to be doing The Play That Goes Wrong. We've known about that for a number of months because, again, one of our board members who's going to direct it brought it to us some time ago. And obviously, part of that is a consideration of how far in advance you need to be able to book these shows, get the rights, and that sort of thing. And especially with a show like that, which is a hot topic now in the area, you're also competing in a way with other theater groups who are going to do that show themselves. And we found that we did Elf the musical last winter, and it was the same thing. I think we were up against 3 or 4 other groups within probably a 75-mile radius that we're putting it on, and we put our spin on it, they put their spin on it, and we're very fortunate to have the groups of people in our community that come out will fill a house up every show, and we know that that's probably not going to interfere with anybody else. But some of those shows do mean that you have to be thinking about them a year and a half, maybe 2 years in advance to be able to pin it down.
But also is getting directors and actors you want too, right? As far as planning ahead.
Absolutely, because again, we might have a director that we've asked them to pitch a show. We're kind of giving them a slot to say fall of 24 or spring of 25. That gives them some advance notice because a lot of them, I think as Dan or Mark mentioned, finding directors can be difficult, and some of those folks are in high demand across South Central Wisconsin. And they might also be involved in a high school group. They might also be involved with the university. So it's finding the people and finding the play, and then sometimes it's getting them into the slot or telling them, or them telling us that they can fit us into their slot.
So Mark, you mentioned going out to your members. How did that work? I always worry about that because if they give you advice and you don't take it, then you're not even, you're a step back. I just wonder how that went.
Sure. Well, I mean, basically, they know that we're just gathering a number of ideas. It's not like we're looking for them for one idea, trying to see, what types of shows they're interested in. And usually, I mean, there is a good enough list of things from that we can find something that fits with what we would like to do, or a general category of shows or something like that someone's interested in.
Yeah. Dan, any issues? You guys ever done? Oh, I see. We have another guest.
My dog, yeah. Sorry, I have a beagle, so she
of
likes
course,
to make
noisy.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Everybody's used to it.
Yeah. Right.
So tell us about what's the biggest challenge? I mean, you've done it both ways. Now you're kind of doing show and finding a director. You've done it the other way. What's the biggest challenge now? I mean, if you're looking how far ahead? A year or more?
In Sun Prairie, we look at least a year ahead, a little more. Now we're trying to do that, and I think the biggest challenge still remains getting the director and the staff assembled, because once you have the director, if they don't have a staff that they're bringing along, then it's if it's a musical, you got to have a choreographer and a music director and props and sets and all of that things. We have a pretty good core for a lot of those things, but like this past year, we didn't do just 3 shows. We did an extra show in the summer, and then you start getting burned out a little bit. And so I think the challenge is still, once you have that director, assembling the staff and making sure you have enough volunteers to do the work that needs to be done to get a show on the stage.
You guys agree? The other Tony and Dan, Mark, about burning out staff?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're coming off a huge show, you definitely don't want to have another huge show like right after. Or just trying to make sure that you're spacing things out and doing some good pacing throughout the year.
Tony? Absolutely. And we have, I've always referred to some of our production regulars as being kind of jealous of their jobs, and not in a bad way. They're people who really are committed. I did not have a big theater background, and so it's amazing to me the level of commitment that we have and that I find in community theater. We're an all-volunteer outfit like a lot of other people, and these folks aren't getting paid to show up and put the dozens or hundreds of hours in sometimes for productions. It always amazes me, and I'm so proud that we have that. But yeah, to Dan's point, if you've got a big show, if you have a musical in particular where you need a music director, you might need a choreographer, you might need a stage manager in addition to other things, and sometimes those are not easy jobs for somebody or for groups to find. We are struggling with that, a couple of the shows we've got coming up, and it's going to be an ongoing challenge. The things with like lighting and sound and costumes and props, we have a pretty solid core of people that are able to step up with that. Just to think of the last couple of shows we did, we had in some cases kind of a family affair. Somebody was acting in the show, the wife or the husband who also happened to be the music person, and who also then came in with assistant stage manager or something like that, which has been helpful because sometimes the directors do bring their own cast of characters in, and other times they're really relying on us to do that for them.
So, without getting into numbers, because that's a tricky thing here, I don't want to do that, but do you pay directors, music directors, do you pay, what of that kind of core group at the top do you pay? Dan, we'll start with you.
Sure. We do pay a stipend for directors and for the orchestra and the musicians.
And all the musicians?
And it depends on the show, and it depends on, the availability, basically. But yeah.
Mark, what do you know about that?
Yeah, pretty similar. The music director, that'd be something for them, and the director as well. I'm not sure about a lot of the different production support and staff. I think those are mostly just volunteer positions.
Yeah, and I should clarify. Our support staff too is not paid. It's just the directors.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Tony,
we're the same. We'll pay the director again if a choreographer is needed, or if a music director is needed, and sometimes we'll allow the director to make decisions with that pool of money on their own in terms of if they want to give a little more back to if they want to bring somebody else on, and they want to share their own stipend with that.
Yeah,
that's their business. So, I mean, we don't pay generally. Somebody's going to correct me on this in terms of musicians, but generally we don't. The actors don't get paid, so finding the right musician might be a different story. But
yeah, that is. I know that comes up when you need a stand-up bass, and guess what? There's only three, and or something specific like that, or you need a flute in this section, and that there's only a couple, and so I know we've had to do that, but it's hard to be consistent. It's hard. I've talked to a number of different groups that don't pay directors at all. 100% volunteer. That's just what you accept when you go in. So I think in our case, we're all a little bit closer to Madison, and we have some competition there to get some of these people, and we know that if we paid nothing, they probably wouldn't come. So,
right.
I mean, that's just part of the business. Okay. When the director comes in, do you interview directors? I mean, even directors do you have them come make a pitch? Or what if you don't know them? What is the process for that? Tony?
I'm trying to remember the last time we interviewed a director. Generally, because we've had the consistent core of directors, we will have them come in to a board meeting. And especially if we are asking them to pitch a couple of shows, they might come in and talk about a couple of the shows that they'd really like to do. And then again, we have the opportunity for the board to discuss that, hand it off to the play reading committee. But generally, if they're a known quantity, we know who they are. We were comfortable enough with them to ask them back, and we know their reputation and the kind of show that they're going to bring to us. Very few surprises in my time with SVP, but sometimes you do.
Mark?
Yeah, same thing for us. We have the person who's proposing to direct come join a board meeting, talk about what they want to do, what type of show they want to do, and we want to make sure that it matches with the type of show we need at that particular time. So we'll talk with them about if they have a list of shows maybe that they have that we can kind of look at and say we'll narrow that down and say, okay, this is the one we'd like you to do if they'd like you to that we'd like you to put together for us. And sometimes someone might come in with a show and just say, this is what I really would like to do. And again, if it works, then we can go with just that. And as far as like the experience of the directors, it also varies too. Like we'll take a director who's returning, who we know has done wonderful shows in the past and really knows how to run a show and put something great on stage. And we'll also take a chance on different members if they have shown that they've done an outstanding job in other facets of production, or in the performance or music directing or something like that, and they want to take it to the next level and try to direct a show. Then we can. We've had instances where we've taken them on and had them to do their show that they want to do.
Do they make a pitch as well?
Yeah.
Internal candidates?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So we've had, I think there was only one time in my time on the board where we've had a couple different people wanted to vie for directing the show at the same time, and they sort of came on the meeting, talked a little bit about what they were going to do, and then after they, of course, after they left the meeting, then we had our internal discussion about which one we were going to go forward with.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah,
Same question.
I really like that idea too of trying to cultivate new directors from within, and it's something that we've tried to do as well, where especially if it's kind of a newer director, maybe they, like you said, they've done a lot internally, we want to get them to become, keep moving, keep growing. So that's something we're trying to cultivate, and we do have a fair amount of folks who have directed repeatedly over the years, and so do we interview them? Not necessarily, not the ones who have repeatedly directed shows, but we will have them come in and talk to the board about their vision and their ideas. So I guess you could consider that an interview, but we already know they're going to do the show. If it's somebody new to the organization, then we will do an interview process, and that goes back to the play selection committee oftentimes, and they'll interview and then they'll bring their suggestions. And there are times too where we do have competition for. We recently did Rent, and there are a couple of different people who wanted to be involved in that. So then you do have to kind of sift and winnow and do some more interviewing and then choose.
So none of you have said anything about payola directly to the board members. That's another topic for another day. That's fine.
Right.
All I have ever asked for is a sash, and nobody will get
a sash. That seems appropriate somehow. Okay, well, and I think this is not a science, as we've all found out. You've done it. It sounds like everybody's done it every which way. Somebody comes up, somebody's passionate about something, you want to give them a forum to at least pitch it, right? Whether it's internal or external.
Right.
It's the financial aspect of musical versus play. There's different members in your group that don't sing but want to act, and there's all of these things that a board has to consider that an individual says, hey, in high school I was Music Man, that kind of thing. So
can I just add something to that too, Dan?
Yeah,
The other thing that we're really finding here at Sun Prairie too is we have a lot of kids who want to be involved in theater. So that also it's becoming a larger and larger part of our selection process too. We're looking for shows that children can be in often because we have them and they want to be involved, and also it obviously helps sells tickets too.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I know Oregon has their summer show, which is almost always a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah. Yep. Yes. Definitely.
And interestingly enough, Stoughton does not have that problem. It's something we were trying to work on, but we have a group in town that does their own children's thing. They pay to be part of this theater group, but Stoughton Village Players does not. And so we keep trying to fix that part of it. Okay, we got a lot of things on the table here. So this is the part of the show where I'm going to ask each of you for a single piece of unsolicited advice. In other words, anybody who's listening has not asked for advice, but you're going to give it anyway. So show and director selection, what is one thing that you think people need to remember going forward? Tony, I'll start with you. Just pick.
I think we have found that you can't be afraid to try some things that aren't necessarily in your wheelhouse. Again, we did Sylvia, which includes a lot of language we had never put on stage in Stoughton before. We just did a show that Angel Street, which is not well known. I mean, even if you knew the movie Gaslight, you probably didn't know Angel Street. It was a small cast. It was spectacularly done. I mean, I was so proud of the direction, of the production, the acting. That was not something we were necessarily going to fill the house with. And as we got to the second weekend, people figured out it was really good and started showing up. So I think I would just tell people, if you are too cognizant of the community, you want to know about community standards, but at the same time, you're a theater group. Don't be afraid to sort of step outside and be dangerous a little bit.
Great. Mark, you're up.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Tony said. I think you take advantage of the flexibility that comes with being a community theater group and try a variety of different things. Don't pigeonhole yourself into just one area. But I think also it's important, and one thing that's really worked well for Oregon Straw Hat Players is just kind of knowing your assets, knowing the strengths of the group, knowing what kinds of things we tend to do well, and trying to focus on that, and just also looking at trying to have a mix of the shows that, as Dan had said, put the butts in the seats, and then also trying to figure out, does someone have a passion for something that is, you're talking more like Sylvia, as Tony said, you want to try something and see how it works, or just, people have an interest in doing something a little different, and just give that a try, and then use the, kind of like a lot of actors do, they have their art movies and then they have their paycheck movies, you sort of kind of do that where you can pay for, pay for the more creative or the lesser known shows by doing some of the bigger known shows and mixing them in.
Great. Dan?
Yeah, I'll parrot what they both said. It is great to do shows that you haven't really expanded to do before. Like I mentioned before, we did Rent this year. That was kind of a departure for us to do a show like that, and we just got fantastic talent to come out and do that show, and we had really good audiences. So anyway, that's that. But I guess, and this is just my opinion, and probably not an opinion that other people on our board all share, but my advice to community theaters is to think about doing a season, doing a theme that have your shows fit into a theme and a season feel like more of the professional theaters do. You can still be a community theater or a civic theater, and I think that might make it easier to program directors and staff and things like that if it's all kind of weaved together. How to do that, I think a lot smarter people need to do that than I am. But that would be my advice, is just think about maybe a theme. And maybe some of you guys have done that and it's worked and it hasn't, but it just seems like it would be a great way to select shows.
Great idea. In the last section here, I told each of these guys that they have 1 minute each for shameless promotion. And again, Dan, this is about the group, not about you personally. So, So Mark, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Yeah. So our group, like I said, we've been around for 40 years. We don't have anything right now for me to promote as far as a show, so I'll talk a little bit more about the group. We came from the Straw Hat circuit, so it was kind of the traditional of summer shows, and that's kind of how we started. And then we branched off into doing some plays and different things like that. But one thing I'll say about the group that, I think in general, community theater is an outstanding entertainment value. And so much talent that you never would know is in all these communities. Yeah. I think one area that our particular community in Oregon just excels at is musicality. Just really, they have a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge about music and performing music. And I think another thing that's very characteristic of our group is just that willingness to train and help people. We have a lot of young people that come through the Oregon High School. Like I said, we do the musical in the spring that features more high school students, and that actually brings in students from around the community, not just from Oregon, but anywhere in the area who are interested. So it's like a community theater for high school, sort of thing. We've done scholarships for different individuals if they're going to try to take what they've learned, and move it to the next level, and they're going to become professional and make a career out of this. So we do help to nurture and just help establish talent and encourage people to try things out, learn a new skill, and kind of build on that. And I think we have a very strong history of mentorship as well.
Excellent. That's good. Good point. Dan, you're up.
Yeah, community theater. I encourage people to go out and see as many community theater shows around the area as they can, not just in our community, but every community around here, because there is great talent all over here. It's a great value. You're going to walk out of there going, wow, most of the time. So I just really, I echo what Mark says there. But we've got a couple of things coming up in Sun Prairie with Sun Prairie Civic Theater. First of all, we have our Baby Bump Bingo, which is actually not happening in Sun Prairie. It's our mystery dinner theater, and it's happening at Buck and Honey's in Monona. So it's a great location to go and have a great meal and then see a kind of an improv mystery dinner theater that we do every year. And you got to get your tickets quick because and they're not on sale yet, but they will be through our website. And you have to you go to our website, sunprairiecivictheater.com. You can get the information on how to get your tickets for that, and you basically get it by calling the restaurant. And that's happening October 24th through the 26th. And like I said, they sell fast. And then we're doing The Sound of Music, which is the old chestnut, the classic that folks, almost everybody has seen, maybe multiple times. But it's different every time you see it. We're doing The Sound of Music November 10th through the 19th. So it's a great way to kind of kick yourself into the holiday spirit. I think My Favorite Things has become one of those holiday songs that people, I don't know how that became a holiday song, but it is. But The Sound of Music's a wonderful show. Everybody knows the music, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We have some great performers in it, and a great director and a musical director and all of that stuff. So come see that one out in Sun Prairie.
Excellent. Very good. I'll talk about that in a minute. Tony, go.
Well, when you have had a chance to go to Sun Prairie and see The Sound of Music, that same 2-week stretch, please stop down to Stoughton. We are putting on 12th Night the Musical, which is Shakespeare with music. And our director is really excited. We've cast a nice sized group of people, young to old, and we are thrilled to be able to put that on. This next their winter schedule, we're going to be putting on, in celebration of our 50th anniversary, we're going to be putting on a variety show. And it's an opportunity for people to do skits, lines, things like that from the shows that we've put on over the last 50 years. So that'll be something different for us. We've done variety shows in the past, but this one will be specifically to kind of celebrate what Stoughton Village Players has been about for all these years. And I just say one more thing about community theater. I am continually astonished at the quality of people that show up to do volunteer community theater. The people that come onto stage who have long histories of high school, college, some maybe semi-professional, professional acting, people who haven't been on stage in 40 years that will show up and just amaze us. And it's always fun to see those people who maybe you've known or haven't met in town, or they just moved to your community, and all of a sudden they're really excited about community theater. And we try and embrace that as much as we can and get them involved.
Excellent. Thanks to the panel here. This was great. Good conversation. I think people watching will be given some things to think about and apply to their own groups, which is the whole idea. So next time on Cast Party, we will talk about casting and auditions. Now that's a pretty heavy topic. Things that have gone well, things that haven't gone well. Do you do the same thing every time? Does the director totally control it? that kind of thing is what we'll be talking about. So, and I thought about that, Dan, about I saw the notice about Prairie had 150 people try out for Sound of Music, and the cast has got 60 or 70 people in it or whatever. That falls into the insane category over here of casting.
There's a lot of days.
So we'll talk about that next time. So thank you again, gentlemen. Appreciate it. So we're going to close out. Have a great show, everybody.